Hey folks, it's Ardwulf. Welcome. We have an unboxing today of a brand new product. This is Point Blank. V is for Victory from Lock and Load Publishing. First off, I'd like to thank Lock and Load Publishing for sending me this to unbox. It is a pretty highly anticipated new product from them, and it's already getting favorable comparisons to the classic Avalon Hill game up front. So without further ado, let's open her up and take a look. First of all, we notice it's super heavy, and it is in what looks to me to be approximately a 3-inch box. Big standard bookcase size box here. So without reading off the ingredients here, which we're going to take a look at in a moment, complexity 6 out of what looks like 10, solitaire playability 10 out of 10. So it certainly looks like there is a possibility of playing this solitaire in a design from the ground up type of way. Game design and development by Sean Drulinger, and game art by Shane Logan. And it looks like there's a vassal module as well. So let's open her up and see what we get. Certainly the box is nice. And not only is this like a big box, which I always like to see, but this is one of the thickest wargame boxes I have ever seen. It is, I'm going to see if you can really kind of make out just how thick this thing is. This thing is insanely thick. All right, so the first thing we get, let's push that off to the side and take a look at the components one at a time. So we have a couple of books. We have, first of all, a core rules book, V1.0, and we have a module rules and scenarios. So looking at the rule book, it looks like 94 pages. I know it says 95, but that's the inside of the back cover. Glossy paper, full color, sort of a textured paper, but the print is fairly large, more, larger than I typically see in the kind of games I play. So it's not too bad. Looks like it's profusely illustrated. So don't assume that this is incredibly complicated just based on the number of pages in the rule book. There's a lot here. And we can see, though, that they are pretty much all rules, but a lot of it is solo rules, get their own section, and there's a lot of like specifics as far as the types of terrain and stuff like that. So pretty impressively produced rule book, that's for sure. Looks like you can run out of ammo. And I think this is fundamentally a squad type of thing, but because it is a card game fundamentally, although we're going to see like board things in a minute here too, I think that might just saying that it's a squad level game may give you a wrong impression. Here we have module and scenario rules, and we have national specific rules, and it looks like we have U.S., German, British, Canadian, and Free French forces. This makes it sound like French partisans. It is in fact French partisans, and not like Allied equipped Free French organized army formations. We get a DYO system, so you can design your own scenarios. That's pretty cool. Here's a little ad for a variety of other products available from Lock and Load Publishing. Here we are into the scenarios themselves. Bedlam Bridge, July 1944. Dawn at Saint-Côme-du-Mont, June 8th, 1944. Ham and Bloody Jam, June 6th, 1944. Bénouville, France. This looks like British, so... and it looks like this is British 6th Airborne versus the Germans. So that's actually pretty cool. Vive la Resistance, June 18th, 1944. So we got a lot of D-Day type stuff here, which makes sense given the nationalities that are present, as well as it's kind of like a good place for a new World War II tactical system to start, because everybody's familiar with it. You won't get any questions like, D-Day, never heard of that. At least one hopes. So a lot of scenarios here, like a lot of scenarios. Looks like there's adjustments or special things done, solo play posture in the scenario if you are playing these in solitaire mode. The great, this sounds like, this is Market Garden, actually. Attack on the Grossbeek Heights. This would be September 1944. So we've got a whole bunch of Western Front type stuff in here. October, November, no, 1944. Belgium, December 20th, 1944. This is Battle of the Bulge. So we've got quite a bit of Normandy, a little bit of Market Garden, and a smattering of the Bulge in the scenarios. And then in the back here, we've got campaign rules. You could play campaign points for this, campaign mode for this too, which is pretty cool. Here is, are these separate scenarios? Maybe these are campaign scenarios at the very end. Okay. Yeah, it looks, it's very pretty so far. All right, next up in the box, we have the mats slash boards. And I don't know if a like mounted version of this is available. That would be kind of something that Lock and Load does. So this is a, I think you get two of these. And they're very large, and they have a somewhat of a satiny feel on the front, which is good. So we get kind of a big one and a small one. And these are the fields of battle on which the battle actually commences. These you will definitely need to put under plexi if you have the unmounted ones, because they are pooching a lot. You could flatten them. That is another approach you could take, but I would just put it under flexi, which will also take care of flattening them as well. All right, so we get a big Ziploc bag of what looks like counters and player aids, and we're going to be very interested to see what comes next here. Challenge on this thing is always getting it out of the bag without wrecking the bag or wrecking the counters. I've done both in the past. If it becomes that troublesome, I will typically just tear the bag open. All right, so we do have two sheets of counters, which look like they're basically just markers, and these are the pretty typical Lock and Load publishing counters that I've seen. They're large, they're pre-rounded, and they have a nice velvety, satiny finish on them. And I don't see anything else that isn't some kind of status marker or other type of marker here. Now we also have some play aids, solitaire flowcharts, solitaire player aid, defensive posture actions. Here's another solitaire flowchart, the defensive and offensive postures for recon. Another solitaire flowchart. This is offensive and defensive postures and upkeep phase, where this one is a unit spend or discard action. Okay, so we got a lot of flowcharts for those who love flowcharts. Here is what looks like the stand. These are different. Another player aid. Now these are on I'd say heavy medium weight cardstock, pretty shiny. So I think these will hold up extremely well under use. Point blank player aids, leader shake and fatigue, melee, looks like a melee summary. On the other sides we have a key to the icons and a key to the various hero markers. Always handy to have that on a reference card. Here we have another solo flowchart, offensive posture move actions. Okay, so it looks like kind of like we got a different kind of flowchart for each type of action. In my experience, these can slow the game down while you're kind of learning the flowchart as alongside the rules, but once you get the hang of it, it should move relatively quickly. And at some point, if you're playing this enough, you'll probably end up memorizing this, whether you intend to or not, and you won't need the player aids anymore. Okay, so here's another general player aid. This is the Terrain and Objectives card. It's very nice that you are given a rule reference, 10.1 point, whatever this is. So you can just look it up if you need to know, the details about what a wheat field does in combat. There's a summary of objectives. On the back of this, we have game phases. So this is basically sequence of play. We've got another solo flowchart, offensive and defensive posture actions with melee / overruns, cover, and ready actions. On the back of that, we have defensive posture moves. We got more player aids, tons of player aids. Here's another general player aid, miscellaneous tables and mnemonic guides, line of sight summary. That's nice. It's often the case that line of sight is some of the fussiest rules in any game that includes line of sight. So that you have and this is going to kind of take place on a grid, like a rectangular grid. So it's probably a great idea to include a line of sight summary somewhere. Here's another firing player aid with a whole bunch of charts and mnemonic aids for the fire process, which looks pretty cool. Okay, so there is sort of one other thing in the box, and that is cards. A lot of cards. There's a lot of cards. And I gotta hand it to them for doing a really nice job on the tray, right? It's in this kind of plastic blow molded tray. And if I haven't told you, these are all probably 1 1/4, 1.5 inch towers of cards, of which there are 7. And then another 1.25 inches of what look like character cards and other types of cards, plus a couple of dice. Thematically, these are very appropriate for the US and the Germans, so that's pretty cool. And a lot of the scenarios there's some Canadians and British in there too, and apparently some French Protestants, but a lot of the scenarios look like they were for Americans, which, is not shocking either. So really nice, and it's a lot of times these are like a really flimsy plastic. That is 100% not the case here. Now, you may end up with like card drift or something. That could be a concern in this box unless you store it flat like that, as opposed to storing it on its side, which is what I would normally do. I expect there's going to be things you can do to mitigate that. All right. So since there are 10.7 million cards in this, I'm not going to open them all, but I will show you the backs, and we'll look at a couple of different ones here. So let's look at these tiny cards first. One of these days, it hasn't happened yet, shockingly. One of these days I'm going to be flashing that knife around on camera. I'm going to cut myself, and it's going to end up in a blooper reel at some point, which I think I may have to charge separately for to see that kind of spectacle. All right, so the Point Blank V for Victory mini cards here, and these appear to be, push all of this out of the way. These cards, first of all, which are Smoke on one side and Blaze on the other side. So we'll put those with the tiny cards. And then here we have Lieutenant Anders, Lieutenant Konza, Lieutenant Grimm, Lieutenant Oshman, Lieutenant Werner, Major Haag, who sounds Dutch. So we've got a lot of German leaders and support weapons here. And these have, I think these are heroes, and they have the icons on them. And I think you're basically putting the cards down, and when you use the card, whatever the terminology is, I believe calling that tapping the card is a trademark. So we're not going to be able to call it that. But we also, of course, have some Americans and American support weapons, American satchel charges. Here's British, so BARs. Actually, that's not. I'm thinking of a different weapon, the Sten gun. BAR is an American weapon. So I'll totally get people yelling at me in the comments for that. Here's the British stuff: Lieutenant Hughes, Sergeant Angrave, the Bren gun. That's the one I'm thinking of. The Piat, the possibly most insane anti-tank weapon in the entire war. And down here we're going to have the French partisans. Claude Levasseur. I wonder if these are historical individuals, and then some more Germans down at the end. So that's interesting. Looks like we've got some ordnance represented by these small cards as well. So as you'd kind of expect, there's kind of a lot of Germans, good chunk of Americans, good chunk of British in these mini cards. Certainly, I think there's not only room to design your own scenarios for this, but there is also a scenario design system included. So for those who kind of want a wargamey card game and don't want to take the trouble to rustle up a copy of up front, which is going to be pricey to say, and possibly a hassle to say the least, maybe give this a look. So again, this is like the main deck, and there's like a lot of cards here. There's I can't turn the box over because there's cards in it now. But here we have trucks, we have tanks, we have mortars, we have squads. We have squads and half squads. So you don't flip to half squad, which is interesting. Airborne squads. There's infantry squads. And they've got icons on them. There's a big guide for that. Partisan squads. French partisan squads. So holy cow, there's a lot of cards in here. So let's take a look at one of these decks as well. I'm not going to show you every card in the game because we'd be here all day. But let's take a look at one of these as well, because I don't know what these are. So very deluxe looking package here, I gotta say. Okay, so I think this is what I'm going to call without interesting. Okay, so your terrain cards are here. Mines are here. Stone buildings, stone walls. And then these, I'm not sure what these represent. So we will find out at some point. Bocage. Okay. So there's an enormous quantity of stuff in this box, which I am certainly going to be able to get it all back in because of the very nice tray liner or box liner that Lock and Load has put in here. Let's put these over here, because we don't want to go over top of the inside. So let's experiment here and see how much stuff we can get in without putting the counters in, because is there room for a counter tray? It looks like there is. It looks like there's going to be a little box bulge if you do that. So may need to come up with something slightly more creative than a counter tray to manage these counters. But then again, there's not that many of them, so I don't think that's going to be a huge problem. Nor do I think getting... you could certainly fit everything back in the box. The only question is how you're going to organize the counters. And we've got the maps as well. The boards or maps, I'm not sure I would use the term maps. But in any event, looks like we've got an example of spontaneous counter clipping here. So let's put counter punching at least. So let's put that back in the box. This would be why they're shipped with inside a bag, by the way. So I would prefer that, because that way that bag will protect them during transportation as well. But what we've taken a look at here is a very interesting looking new World War II squad level card game in very much the same space as Upfront. Point Blank, V is for Victory, from Lock and Load Publishing. Designer Sean Drulinger. Very nice looking package. Hopefully, because it's a card game, I think there's not a terrible chance we'll get this to the table at some point before too long. So hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Thank you very much. Once again, thanks to Lock and Load Publishing for sending me this. I very much appreciate that. I'd also like to give a shout out and thanks to the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair, without whom it would be very difficult to keep making all the different types of content that we make here on the channel. So thank you, patron. And thank you for watching, and until next time, happy wargaming.